Chris.
Thanks, John, and Michele. Cool roof structure in that sawtooth. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
But yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, AIA Philly, and thanks for everyone taking time out during lunch to listen in. We're honored to talk about our work a bit. I'm going to, like Michele, tell you a little bit about our office, and then I'm going to hopefully walk through 2 projects in Harrisburg with you. So next slide. So we have 2 offices. We have a staff of 7 in Harrisburg. I think we skipped one. Maybe can you go back one? Yeah, there you go. So, I'm proud to have a group, very talented individuals that go into making the work. So we have 7 people in Harrisburg. That's the picture on the left. We have 3 people in the Czech Republic. And if you go to the next slide, I'll show you where the offices sit in those cities. So on the left there, we've always been downtown. We're in our 13th year now. But all 3 offices in Harrisburg have been right downtown between the Susquehanna and the Capitol complex, which you can see kind of up in the right there. The Czech office really came about through working with Jan Veros, the director of design here with me, who worked in Harrisburg for a year. And then I guess that was 2015 or thereabouts, said, hey, I need to go back home. Let's keep working together. And I was really skeptical that it could work, but it's been working. It's been working great, and collaboration, and it put us in a good spot to be able to navigate the world being turned upside down with COVID then. Next slide, please. So we really focus on our clients. I mean, we view architecture as an art, and we think that all art gets its power from the way it impacts people's lives, right? So we listen closely to people, and we try and help them the best we can with, what architecture can do to further their cause. So just real quickly, Andrea up on the upper left, she has a coffee shop. I'm going to walk you through that project. Michael on the right there, he is in the Cancer Institute at Hershey Med Center, and we helped him develop a suite to help people who are newly diagnosed with cancer. My daughter's on the bottom right there. We did a dance studio for her. She's studying dance now. And then on the left is the director of the Hershey Public Library, and we did a pretty dramatic renovation of the library. Next slide. We are passionate. I think John's introduction, we're pretty design geeks. I think we take field trips to go look at architecture. My wife, who's listening in, is always kind of peeling me away from buildings when we travel and that sort of thing. But to kind of lend some validation to that, we submit for design awards. 2 years ago, we submitted 6 projects, and all 6 won a design award. So I think that's kind of vindication or validation, I guess I should say, that we're thinking about things in a productive way, at least in the eyes of our peers. So this gives you, I think, a sense of the array of work that we have in the office. The coffee shop, I'm going to walk you through in the upper left, a study lounge at Penn State, Harrisburg Library, a high-end residential on the right, a distillery in the lower right, City Hall, which I'm also going to walk you through in Harrisburg, renovations there. And then that library, new entrance on the left there is bottom left. Next slide, please. So my background really was formed through going to Syracuse. Le Corbusier was kind of a god there, and it gets indoctrinated in you quickly. And I had an appreciation for it pretty quickly. But then second year, we went to Princeton, and I saw Charles Gwathmey's Whig Hall renovation, and the light just went off. And, I understood the power that architecture could have in the context of a dialogue with older historic buildings and still be honest to its time. And I think this has been a real kind of at the core of a lot of our work ever since then. We even did as Eric mentioned earlier, we guest curated an exhibit at the Susquehanna Art Museum here in Harrisburg called Towards an Old New Architecture, highlighting the best examples of contemporary additions and renovations from around the state. Next slide. So it's St. Patrick's Day, and I figured I could sneak in a reference to U2, one of my favorite bands. So I hope everyone's enjoying a beverage maybe now. But it's deeper than that for me. I guess I was like 13 when I discovered you two. And for me, they were taking their craft and they were using it in a deeper way than a lot of their peers to really change the world. I think is, not to make it too out there, but that's what they were hoping to do. And, that's one angle of it. So that was inspiring. And then I think I've always thought of the office that I wanted to create as being a band where a lot of different creative people could come together and we could kind of create something greater than the sum of its parts, right? And later on, somebody in my office put together this Photoshop of the office at the time with our heads pasted over Radiohead. So that's what you're seeing on the right there. Next slide, please. John asked us to talk about Harrisburg a little bit. So we're deeply committed to Harrisburg. I thought there was a void for design in the city when I set up the shop, and we've been here since the very beginning. The image on the right is a map that we put together. We did a pop-up exhibit 4 years ago now, I believe. And we wanted to show the concentration of work that was really close to the office. The pop-up exhibit was on the ground floor of our building. And we do things like we coordinate the AIA lecture series here, and we, just like we're trying to do through this, promote a discussion, a dialogue about design. So this is Peter Bowen lecturing a couple years ago at the Keystone building in Harrisburg. Next slide, please. So I'm going to quickly go through 2 projects. Elementary Coffee. So this is about 1,000 square foot renovation of 2 for her shop. There's some residential units up above, but her shop is on the ground floor. And it was, you can see in the lower left there, pretty dilapidated buildings. And hopefully what even comes across in this initial kind of completed image of the exterior is just that vibe of the new and the old. Even when we were pretty targeted about our renovations, there's a sense of the newness on the first floor versus the more historic restoration above that. Next slide. And the interior was shocking, right? So the left side there, that looks to me like the Star Wars trash compactor scene when we opened the door and looked inside there. And now today, it's been transformed into a space that's really warm and inviting, flooded with natural light, and, an emphasis on high quality materials. She is, I think the best coffee in Harrisburg. So, we wanted to have an architectural language that was in step with that. Next slide, please. A little bit just about our process. I know there's a lot of architects on here, but I think there's also probably an equal number of non-architects on here too. So, we start with sketches. I mean, we start by listening, and then we do some sketches, test concepts, and it's really a collaborative process of engaging in, dialogue with the owner. So on the left there is a really early concept sketch. The right is the final plan. There's a lot of similarities from that early sketch, but there's a lot of things that were tweaked based on the interaction with Andrea and what she wanted the shop to be, not just what us as the architect wanted it to be. Next slide. And then I also like to make the point just that good design fundamentally is about working through the functional side of things. So even in this really basic, in some ways, coffee shop, this drawing sheet shows that there's 25 pieces of equipment in this little area that we had to figure out how it all went together in, in a functional way. And it also set the tone for how she wanted the shop to be perceived. It's no accident that the espresso machine is on the back bar instead of the front bar. It's, part of a discussion that we had with her about how that, the impact of that. Next slide, please. We do pretty high-end renderings during the design process to explain the design intent, proportions, finishes, daylighting. So these are what I would call before shots during design. And then if you go to the next slide, this is the final shot, and Andrea's kind of testimony about what it was like to work with us. We're really proud to be able to, even in a small project like this, get to a pretty decent level of design. And then really proud to be able to support her in her bigger kind of interest in social justice issues. Elementary is, about educating people, not only about coffee, but LGBTQ rights, civil rights, just having a community that's engaged in Harrisburg. So she's been a great client. Next slide, please. So Harrisburg City Hall, I'll try and go through this pretty quick. This is a 40-year-old brutalist building that we were hired to do a master plan and started phase one. You can see even in the lower left image just how off-putting the entrance to the building is over this kind of moat. Next slide, please. This is a diagram, an axon for phase one. And the orange kind of highlights the reorganization. Because I'm short on time, I won't walk through all this, but next slide. Fundamentally, we wanted to make the building, more identifiable. Even the name of the building is, really long. City of Harrisburg, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Government Center. And people often had trouble kind of finding, am I at City Hall? So we tried to simplify the signage, bring the front door out, have a canopy that pulls you into the building, just as a more friendly kind of arrival sequence and gesture towards the city. Next slide. And then once you're inside the left, it was a kind of existing condition. You weren't even really sure that you arrived, and the receptionist was kind of facing the other way. It was all just really backwards and off-putting. So our concept is to use, a lot of warm wood on the ceiling and some walls and casework to give a friendly face as soon as you come in and you feel welcome, but also improve the security in a way that doesn't feel like, you're going to the airport or something like that. Next slide. Council chambers, this was a big part of the project, and rotating it 90 degrees so that when people entered the space, they didn't feel like they were interrupting the meeting, just making a more dignified setting for the business of the city. Next slide. And this is the last slide. So a big part of reorganizing city council was also to kind of get it out behind solid walls. And so there's this glass kind of condition, but then there's this wood plane that is a backdrop for the city's, PR events, press meetings, that sort of thing, which was kind of just felt like somebody pulled a lectern out of a closet and the mayor would start talking, and it just wasn't dignified at all. So we've tried to rectify that and also do something that was more appropriate for, acknowledging the namesake of the center and celebrate it in a way. So I think that the firm, and just in closing, is pretty good at listening to our clients closely and then looking at the existing conditions and teasing out, kind of like what Eric was talking about earlier, teasing out what's good about the existing and leveraging that in a way with fresh new ideas, but not just starting from scratch, and creating a more powerful architecture through that discussion between the new and the old. So thank you.